don't expect anyone. I don't want to be conscious to get this. I don't expect anyone. I don't believe in having a conscience to get this. People that inspired me the most, I don't agree with on very much. The people that I'm doing this for think like me and feel like me. So if you don't, I don't know why you would bother listening. Unless you're just really, really open-minded or something. That's pretty doubtful. In this world that we live in, that insists that everybody is right or wrong, you're not allowed to make a mistake, you're not allowed to take a risk. Because the ones that won't, are cowardice, but it's easier to shit on the ones that do than look at you and evaluate you and what you do and what you don't do. And I realize that I can very easily fall into this demographic of people, but the problem is I don't enjoy it very much. So even if I'm arrogant, I'm not so out of touch that I don't mind that arrogance. And we can all be a little bit narcissistic, too, a lot narcissistic. I guess it just depends on the day, the level that I'm at. It just depends on the moment, depends on the mood that I'm in. And it's okay to have confidence in things that people don't understand. Fuck those people anyway, they don't have to. In fact, it just vindicates me. The fact I'm so offensive. And people don't even understand what I did. But I typically do. Maybe it takes me a minute, but I pull through. And it's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay if you break down. We all break down every once in a while, or sometimes multiple times a week. That used to be me. Now it's like, I don't know, once every 3 months. I say that's pretty good. Constitute me thinking I was gonna kill myself. Now a breakdown constitutes me going, well, you're still not understood. That's alright. I had this comedian friend a while back when I first started. He was like, Amy, nobody's gonna buy what you're selling. He said, you're a self-professed crazy person telling the world that what they do is wrong. Nobody's gonna play along. And he was right. He was right. And I told him that. Typically, when people provide me accurate, constructive criticism, I agree. Typically, when people provide me accurate, constructive criticism, I thank them. And I say, hey, well done. You got a Bible verse for me? No, that's only Lauren. Nobody knows the Bible better than that bitch. Seriously. I find it funny, 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 funny. That to think I don't know how I come across every single day of my life. I always have, I always will. Cause see the look on your face without having to see your face. I hear the thoughts in your head without you having to say them out loud instead. You really don't have to. I'm sorry, that's arrogant, isn't it? It's so arrogant that I think I know everything. I don't know everything. I know a lot of things. And you can't expect me to apologize for everything that I see. That most people don't see until it's way too late. And then of course you know they complain. I fucked that up. And I do have compassion for people that listen to the authority only to find that they were full of shit like they typically are. You just don't know any better. You just don't know any better. Nobody taught you better. My ancestors taught me better. And I didn't even fucking know them. But I do feel that their blood is in my blood. And I do feel that their fuck all swagger is my swagger. And I'd rather have that than not have that, even if people think that I'm totally full of shit. No, that's your job, son. At least I practice what I preach. And I do believe that's the most offensive thing about me. Cause people they love to point things out that I've already pointed out. They love to point things out that I've already pointed out. Keep pointing it out. Like schizophrenic. Yeah, cluster A. Cluster A, baby. It's the awareness one. The problem with schizophrenia, though, is that when we do get into our delusional thinking, we get really arrogant about it and we won't listen to anybody, which is why I'm quiet most of the time, but that's why I do this channel. Because you don't have to be a danger to yourself or anybody else. If you start saying something that people don't like, they can say that you're fucking nuts. And you don't have a fucking Fourth Amendment anymore. You know? Like, I don't think that people understand that. We don't have a fucking constitution. Like, that's not real. The only thing we have is, like, really the Second Amendment. And that's only a matter of time before they take that shit away. And they're using gun violence to do that. So, if they get all these young white boys, if they get them on fucking medication, and they got them playing video games, and no, I don't think video games are the problem. I think it's video games in juxtaposition with the medication. So when they're in this actual psychotic state, this is not a psychotic state because I'm aware of this, okay? Psychosis is when you are not in reality, okay? Having weird thoughts is not psychosis, okay? Acting weird is not psychosis. If I were to run out into the street, if I were to, like, I don't know, try to commit suicide or kill people or something like that, that would be different. But what's so funny is how many people are afraid of crazy thoughts, and then they'll put people on pills that literally make them do the things that they're thinking about. Or sometimes those thoughts never existed in the first fucking place, and I swear they're planting those thoughts in people's heads. Because people that weren't violent suddenly become violent. And people that weren't suicidal suddenly commit suicide. Isn't that kind of funny? I think it's fucking hilarious. And if I'm a bitch, I'm a bitch. And I'm fine with being a bitch. And I'm gonna fucking quintuple down on every point that I've ever tried to make that offends people. Because they're wrong. They're fucking wrong, dude. And so people that make excuses for pharmaceuticals that fucking make it way more possible to commit a mass shooting or to just commit suicide, which you don't really hear about anywhere near as often as the mass shootings because the Democrat Party doesn't make a fuck ton of money, you know? The media doesn't make money. So it's all about money, you know? But all they have to do now is just say, oh, this person's crazy, and that person can go on medication, like forced to take medication, which is a violation of bodily autonomy, okay? Not only that, but they can remove their guns. They can just say, oh, this person's crazy, they're not fit to own a firearm, and then the cops can just show up and take their guns away. So they're going to use mental illness in order to push this agenda to completely get rid of the Constitution, which was always a gaslighting document anyway. But, you know, I hate it for the sheep, because the sheep that would look at me like with such disdain, and I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm so fucking nuts, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, they're coming after you too. It's only a matter of time before they come after you. So empathy would be a good thing. Empathy, a little empathy would go a long way. You know, if you actually cared about people that dealt with a different set of circumstances. You know, people are so set in their ways. They're so obsessed with their little narrative about their life and how hard they have it because of their stupid ass identity. And you know, I'm not doing that. And I know I'm a white girl, so it's kind of stupid that I'm complaining, right? Because white girls are just so privileged. I mean, I'm not going to deny that I'm privileged. I'm driving a fucking Mini Cooper. You think I don't know? But God blessed me with these things because He wanted me to have them. It took me a long time to just accept that. But, you know, sometimes God wants certain people to have good things and other people don't have it as good, and, you know, it's just the way that it is. And I'm not going to feel guilty about having good things all because other people don't have those good things, you know. I try to help people out whenever I can. I mean, I donate a lot of money to a lot of different things. I just recently dropped $50 on some study, because there's this other schizophrenic chick that I follow on YouTube. You should check her out. She's pretty cool. She's a very humble person. Her name's Lauren. She has a channel called Schizophrenia, Living Well with Schizophrenia. And, you know, she used to be on medication, but she's weaned herself off of medication, and she and her husband are both doing the ketogenic diet. And she was really upset because this psychiatrist in, I think it's Maryland, pulled the plug on some study that they were going to do on the ketogenic diet and opted to do a study on clozapine. Okay? Now, if you don't know what clozapine is, you're very lucky. I was never on that shit. I think I was on a Risperdal for like 4 days. Yeah, clozapine is such a horrifying antipsychotic that the military uses it to torture people. Okay? Now, I read that, and a psychiatrist actually talked about that. So I read a lot about medications, and, like, you know, I don't just look up stuff about, like, stuff that goes along with my views either. Like, you know, I read stuff on Psychology Today and, like, Mayo Clinic, you know, like the typical run-of-the-mill websites that most people go to look up anything about psychology and health and things like that. So, like, I'm still reading, like, mainstream news sources, mainstream websites that I know are controlled by the pharmaceutical companies, but I'm trying to, like, figure out, you know, what they're telling the public. What is the public believing because of these websites? But anyway, yeah, so they pulled the plug on this study on the ketogenic diet, which is all about protein, cutting carbs, cutting sugar, and just eating a lot of eggs and nuts and meat. And this girl, you know, she's really upset about it. And, you know, maybe it's because I have a personality disorder on the schizophrenia spectrum, rather than, she has schizoaffective disorder. And I think that people that are, like, schizoaffective or people that are bipolar, they tend to really believe in medication because it's more of a psychotic illness rather than just, like, a disorder that they deal with all the time. That's why I said, like, it really is an advantage being like me, even though people would never believe it. But, yeah, she's really, really mad that this psychiatrist doesn't want to take a pay cut by studying how people are better off if they change their diet than being on an antipsychotic that makes people commit suicide. Okay? But it's just kind of sad to me, like, how little people know about how evil these pharmaceutical companies are. And, you know, in all fairness to this psychiatrist, as much as I hate psychiatrists, I have to admit the fact that, like, you know, they're businessmen. That's all they are. Well, this is businesswoman. So, you know, they're selling a product, and if they look into alternative treatment methods, you know, they're not going to be able to sell their products anymore. So she's just looking at it from that perspective, and she'd probably get killed by somebody in the pharmaceutical company if, you know, she went along with this study on the ketogenic diet. So, you know, you should check out this channel though. It's pretty good. And yeah, diet is so important, which is why, you know, I think most people, they're just too lazy to make that drastic of a change. You know, it's so much easier for people to just pop a pill than it is, or well, in this case it would be like, you know, 10 or 15 pills. But yeah, that's easier. That's an easier thing to do than, you know, stop eating all the stuff that you've been eating thus far and, you know, completely transform all of your habits. I mean, that's what I stress about, you know, technology. Like, you know, if you just curbed your social media use, if you just, you know, put a timer on your smartphone and you locked yourself out of your phone or some shit like that. I mean, I know people that do that. So it's possible if you want to be a better person, but sadly most people do not. And I really think that it's only people that are like, you know, more spiritual that genuinely want to live a better life. I just think that everybody else is perishing. Like, you can just see it. You can see it on their face, and you can just tell, like, by the things that they say, and, yeah. This is such a depressing time to be alive. But anyway, yeah, so I put some money into this study, even though I knew that this study isn't going to happen. I still put money into it because, you know, I believe in mental health, and I believe in people doing research on things that help mentally ill people more than a psychiatrist ever will. But, you know, something that really helps me is doing this. And, you know, having a full-time job, performing. Even I hate performing, I really do, but it's good for me to get out. It's good for me to be around other people, even though I don't want to. You know, I went to church today. I sung in my choir. I talked to my priest. So, you know, that these are things that are good. These are things that are proactive. And I'm really lucky that I have all these options. Like, you know, they'll always say, like, the one thing that they say that is actually truthful is, like, well, you got to have a good support group. If you're schizophrenic, if you got any kind of serious mental illness, you know, you got to have a good support group. And schizophrenia is the most stigmatized mental illness. That's why they don't have parades for us, okay? Not that we would go, but there isn't this level of promotion. There isn't this level of like, ooh, I'm so awesome because I'm schizophrenic, you know? Like, and I think it's because, like, we're stereotyped as violent people, even though we're not violent, like, hardly ever, maybe occasionally, but that's typically when you don't leave us alone. Okay, that's really the only thing that makes me want to be violent. I probably won't actually be violent, but I definitely will want to be violent, and I'll probably say things that are really, really mean that will make you leave, you know, because that's how much I demand my alone time. But, yeah, people that are more on, like, the bipolar side, you know, they tend to want to, you know, be with somebody. Like, because they're more like borderline, you know? I actually think bipolar is borderline personality. But, like, those of us that want to be alone are the most stigmatized people. You know, the ones that aren't actually hurting anybody. We're just talking crazy. But, you know, apparently that's a threat to people on the internet. So, yeah. And I guess it's a threat in the real time as well. You know, if people just see you and you're like babbling, you're just like talking to yourself, people are like, stay away from that guy. It's like, yeah, he probably wants you to do that too, you know? But yeah, man, I'm not trying to whine about the stigma or anything. Like, if anything, it works out for me because people leave me alone for the most part. But yeah, it's really weird when they don't leave me alone. But anyway, yeah, I don't think that anything is positive is gonna happen in regards to like psychiatry. I don't think that psychiatry could ever be reformed. You know, because like there's just way too much money in keeping people sick. You know, there's way too much money in misery. You know? Misery and obesity and addiction. You know? There's so much money in that. So why would they stop doing that? Like, you think that America is ever going to give a fuck about health? I mean, that's just stupid. Like, you're a really stupid person if you think that's ever going to happen. Okay? Like, just naive. Very, very naive. How about that? Like, but I would say that the level of naivety, is that how you say it? Naivety? The level of naiveness in this country, but in Western civilization, is just so ridiculous. Because, you know, people trust those authorities. So they don't understand why people don't want good things, you know? But if they realize, oh, these people are bad, you know? The world is bad. The world is run by shitheads that rape kids and eat them, then yeah, maybe then they would get it a little bit. But I don't think that they ever will, because it's just that's too daunting of a thing to think about, you know? And I hate it. But I'm glad that I have this perspective instead of being a plebeian sheep that just is optimistic about the world, you know? Like, sometimes I'm kind of in awe of them and their ignorance about the way that things are. But at the same time, I think it's better to know than not know the truth, because at least you don't expect anything to be better, and you don't just put all this faith in a bunch of bullshit that if it works at all, it's going to be for like a minute, and then they're going to go right back to the shitter. And you know, that's what all these policies are about. Anytime that they change up a policy and they make it seem like, oh, we're moving in the right direction. Nope. Like, the whole point of this is just to create chaos, okay? But I swear, like, if people knew the truth about this country, they would want to burn it to the ground, you know? They would understand the sentiment of Antifa. You know, like, you don't have to be some crazy, rich, white kid with pink hair in order to hate the country. Like, you really don't. You know, you could just know how much kids get raped and know how much all these people, all these vulnerable people get screwed over. I mean, if they're screwing over the veterans, like, what does that say about everybody else? You know, if they're screwing over the people that fight for the country, what does that say about the elderly? What does that say about children? What does that say about people that never did anything wrong? You know, they never did anything to deserve this kind of treatment, you know? And so it's criminals that are upheld by society. If fucking feminists are upheld by society, what does that tell you?